Welcome to the Dr. Remina Panjwani Show, where we're optimizing wellness together. I am your host, Dr. Remina. Today's guest is my friend, Amanda Soukoulis, a seasoned athlete and a functional nutrition and wellness coach dedicated to empowering high performers to heal in harmony. She's holding a functional nutrition certification along with a master's degree and Bachelor of Science from Penn State University. What happens when a functional medicine physician and a functional nutritionist come together to talk on a podcast? An amazing conversation where it will be of value to you. So hang tight, let's get started. Welcome back to another amazing episode. Today I am joined by my friend Amanda Soukoulis, and y'all are in for a treat. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. We've been trying to make this happen, and I'm so happy we finally did, because when you combine a functional medicine doctor and a functional nutritionist, we're about to get geeky, y'all. It's going to be great.
Facts.
Yes, facts. We're going to be talking about everything and nerd out, but this is the perfect population to do so.
Yes, it's perfectly aligned.
Exactly. So before we dive in, you didn't always know that you wanted to do functional nutrition. And before we dive into what exactly that is, why don't you enlighten us on your journey, how you got here? Because it's quite a journey. You used to dance, you also were on Netflix, it's quite a journey. So please tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. So what Dr. Remina was alluding to is, I grew up a dancer my whole life, competed in college. After college, I was like, I love dancing still. I'm going to go audition for professional cheerleading teams. And in 2023, I was a finalist for the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders. And the day that I showed up for finals, I signed my life away to Netflix, not knowing when I showed up that I would be doing so. And a year later is when the episode released that I was highlighted in. It was such a great experience. And honestly, being a finalist, it was one of those childhood dreams that was wow, I'm actually living a childhood dream. This is so beautiful. I was in what I thought was peak health condition, and I got cut, and I was like, okay, what's next? What's in store? And the months that followed, I had actually traveled to Europe with my family the following month. And while I was in Europe, I caught a really nasty bacterial pathogen. I didn't know it at the time, but when I had come home, it was a month later. So I get cut in June, I go to Europe in July. In August, all of a sudden, my heart rate variability plummeted. And if you're not familiar with what HRV is, it is essentially a metric that tracks how well balanced and ready your nervous system is to take on the day. And I track that using my Whoop, which is right here on my wrist. I've had it for 2 years now. And so all of a sudden, my HRV, it was in the 90s. I was in peak shape. I was taking care of my body. I was had dabbled a little bit in nutrition just to prepare myself for auditions. And I'd worked with a few different, high performance companies, helping lead others live excellent lives through their health. And, I cared a lot about my health. And so all of a sudden my HRV plummets. It was in the 90s. It dropped down to the 60s. I was like, something is wrong. So this is when I sought the Western medicine route. I went to one doctor. The doctor was like, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. So then
comment, right? You're
yes.
fine.
Yeah, you're fine. And I'm like, I know myself, I'm not fine. So thankfully, I had worked with a functional, she studies the ApoE gene, which is a gene that's linked to Alzheimer's and dementia. And my grandfather had passed away from Alzheimer's in 2020. And so my mom and I had done testing through her. And so I reached back out to her, and she honestly was like my first step into functional nutrition. And that was back in 2021, and more like functional medicine than functional nutrition. But she incorporated a lot of that, right? It all goes together. And so I reached back out to her. I said, hey, I'm having these gut problems. I don't really know what's going on, but there's something wrong. So I hop on the phone with her. She's like, I think you just need to take dairy back out of your diet. Because I had put Greek yogurt back into my diet a little bit, which I probably shouldn't have, but I had. And I'm like, okay, yes, I'll take Greek yogurt out, but I think that there's something more going on. And so she put me in touch with the sports nutritionist. The sports nutritionist was like, nope, I agree. You're totally fine. Just get back to the basics. And I'm like, okay, I really didn't veer that far off the basics. I know something's going on. And by this point, it was late in fall. My energy had plummeted. At the time, I also was working in private equity. So I was a CPA, kind of a demanding job. And there was mornings where I'm like, I can't even get out of bed right now. It started like impacting my brain. I was like, I have brain fog, like I'm, I don't know, really old or something. Like, what's going on? I'm young, I'm in my 20s, I should be vibrant. And I knew what it was like to have that optimal health. And so that's when I sought out, well, actually I had an appointment with my OB, my yearly women's wellness. And I went in, and I said, I think there's something going on. She's like, okay, we can run some blood work. So she ran blood work. Everything came back, quote, normal, right? But now we know this, it being in the functional world, normal encapsulates 95% of the data that we have. And I care about optimal.
Exactly.
And so I finally then found a functional nurse practitioner and was able to get a bunch of testing done. And by the time we got the results, it was right after Thanksgiving. It was early December. So that was from August until December. And my health significantly decreased from like October to December. It was horrible. I was breaking out in hives all the time. My body was literally rejecting itself. Weight started piling on my body. The brain fog was unbearable. I couldn't do my job whatsoever. There was no such thing as productivity, like horrible. And the list just kind of goes on. And finally we got the results back, and it was like 60 pages. That's what I love about functional medicine, right? It's looking at everything in the body. And that's when we found out, oh yeah, you do have a bacterial pathogen. And I would never have found out that I had that bacterial pathogen because Western medicine would have said none of those symptoms line up with what you got. And I was having the exact opposite symptoms. And so grateful, right, to have been able to get that. And my thyroid was sluggish. I had adrenal fatigue, all the things, the list goes on. And another thing was that my estrogen levels were postmenopausal. And I was like, oh, this is not okay.
Yeah.
Not okay at all. So I went back to my OB and I said, hey, these are the results from my Dutch test. My estrogen levels are really low. And she looked at me and she said, well, are you trying to get pregnant right now? And I looked at her and I said, no. And she's like, then I don't really care unless you're trying to get pregnant. And I said, okay, so this is done. I will never be coming back to you. And that was kind of the last straw for me. And
I want to interject there because this is such an important instance, because we as women get gaslit, but to get gaslit by another female in gynecology, right? And I'm going to tell you this, is a lot of us as physicians, you get trained in medical school, right? Like you get standard care. And I even talked to my other colleagues, so the ones that are more familiar and are learning more of the functional and they're all about it. Even some of my friends that are surgeons, they're like, to be fair, I don't even know what the Dutch test is. So I believe in it, you do it, but that highlights an important issue is because a lot of physicians, and it's a lot of ego, right? It's a lot of ego in it, and you're not going to admit that you don't know. So what you say is you brush it off. Well, that's fine. And it's the same instance, like if you're going through menopause, right? Or perimenopause. Why is it acceptable for women in that realm to suffer, right? It's like, it's okay, I don't care what you do, because there's another way. And on this side of the functional world, even regular conventional trained physicians that are introduced to this, or even other additional fields like nutrition or whatnot, it shows you there truly is, because it's about being optimal, it's thriving, and not just living through brain fog every day, right? So I'm glad you highlighted that, because I want people to know, whether you're a man or a woman and you're feeling off, listen to it, of course. And that's something I always say too, right? That if someone is telling you, I don't care, then it's probably time to find a different practitioner, because they have the tools, they're trained, and they can show you a different way. So it's great. It's quite divisive in medicine anyways. The ones that aren't familiar with it, they're gonna say, oh, that's not real, but it is. It's science. It's, years-based, big institution of Cleveland Clinic. That's a big one. So anyways, go on. I love it. Go on. Continue with your story.
And you bring up two really good points. The first is that, like, it's how doctors have been trained, and they haven't widened their horizon to learn beyond that. And so they're stuck in their ways rather than like being open to that. And that's why I love when I meet doctors like yourself that are like, there is a better way, and I want to become part of that solution. It's just so brilliant to me, and I love it. So thanks for what you do.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
There's more of us out there in this world. And like you said, like, there's more people that get drawn to it, the right people. And we're out here to help people heal and know that there's a different way.
Absolutely. And the second point I wanted to touch on was that for a lot of people, their health declines gradually over time, rather than like all of a sudden one day. It's just like you turn the page and your health has been just ripped out from under you. For me, my health was ripped out from under me overnight with no answers. And so I talk to all these women, these men, they come in, they're sharing with me what their health story has been like. And I was like, wow, it gives me such a great perspective, because for me, I had optimal living. I was thriving. My body was like so happy. My cells were so happy, right? And then it was like sickness overnight. And so I know how drastic that difference is. Whereas when it's more gradual over time, you don't see how those little changes are really creating a negative cascading effect. And so, yes, it was so painful for my healing journey, but it really gave me perspective to be like, oh, now this is what it's like to unleash that optimal living. Like, I want to be that person that can help people get there, so they could go do things that light their souls on fire. Like, that's where my heart is with what I do. And so, so we figured out everything that was going on. As soon as I talked to that doctor, I was like, okay, I'm going to go become part of a solution for this. And it was also ironic because as I mentioned, I was working in private equity, and one of the sectors that we focus on is healthcare. And so I'm watching and I loved the company I worked for. They were wonderful. Loved the team. Like, I kind of enjoyed what I did because I like numbers, but I wasn't super passionate about it. But I was seeing how these healthcare companies, right, are in cahoots with private equity, who are in cahoots with the limited investors, and the limited partners, right? Those investors were a lot of state-backed pension funds. So it's like the government with big money, which is private equity, with healthcare companies. And it's just like, you're just seeing all this money get tossed around. And I was like, well, what about the functional side? There's got to be a better solution. And so that's when I started doing a deep dive. And that's really when my healing journey began. And I went and became certified, as you said, in functional nutrition. And then from there, I was like, well, I want to be able to do testing. I don't believe in just guessing. So went and got certified to be a practitioner under a bunch of really incredible doctors. And as I was healing, so it took months, right? And as my body was I had just gotten my hormones back in harmony. It was like, yes, this is great. Starting to feel like myself again. And then I was exposed to black mold. And so then my body started shutting down again. And it wreaked havoc on my body again. My weight started going back up again. I wasn't really feeling great. Thankfully, my brain fog didn't come back, but I just like wasn't feeling that energy that I had. And a few months after I had found out, actually I think it was like the next month after I had found out, I happened to be at a conference and started talking to this doctor who actually sources stem cells and peptides. And he's like, oh my goodness, my wife has been battling black mold for all this time. Let's connect. And so I connect with him, and he got me set up on this entire peptide like protocol to get rid of the black mold. And he also helped me with a 10-day reset on my pineal gland. And it is insane. So our HRV, right? That's how ready your nervous system is to take on the day. It was at the 90s. Then I got the pathogen. It went down to the 60s. Then I got the black mold. It was down in the 40s. It is now, I'm like 2 or 3 months, right? 2 or 3 months post that peptide, and my HRV sprang back up into the 60s. It's gone up, it went up 41% over a month. So just like, that was part of my healing journey. And I remember being so frustrated because it was like, I'm doing all the right things. I'm a healthy person. I work out, I eat right, I take care of myself, and my body's still not healing. And someone said to me, they said, Amanda, your body is going to heal on its own time. So be patient with yourself, have grace for yourself. And you know what, Amanda? This is what she said. She said, it had to happen to you this way because there's going to be other clients that you work with that are frustrated along their healing journey. And man, was she so right, because it took me a long time. I was so frustrated. And finally, my body was like, okay, now we're good to go. And the energy has been restored. I feel like I'm thriving. I'm able to get back into the things that I really love. And it's just like fueled this purpose behind me to help, one, let other women know, like, you're not alone. I can empathize with you, and there's a better solution. And I want you to be able to unleash that optimal living yourself.
Oh, beautiful. And I think that's part of the journey as healers, that we all have our story, and that makes us better equipped because we've been there. So we know we're not going to shut down or turn away other people. And another part there is you truly are looking at the whole picture, because, you know, of course, conventionally, you're not looking at toxins, you're not looking at that, but the environment we live in, especially in the United States, and you're Greek, so you know what clean living looks like, right? But you know, I mean, they just finally banned red dye 3, and then, you know, the thing is, there's so many toxins that we're exposed to, that we grow up, the food that we're fed, and it's a balance. There's a balance. And so people don't look at that. Like, are you balancing out to be optimally living? If you're filled with all these toxins, well, how can we limit it? Yes, you can work on, you know, the detox, but how can we live with limiting it? Choosing the right clean ingredients in what we put on top of our skin or ingest, and, you know, wherever else we can find it. There are ways to do that. And you need
Totally.
someone that's equipped, trained, and felt it, because otherwise you just don't know, right? You don't know what to do. But then that's why you find people that are equipped to this. So I wanted to transition over to, so just like, of course, the listeners, they know there's conventional and functional medicine, right? So I wanted to take a few minutes and talk about the difference between, of course, there's the conventional nutritionist, there's the standard registered dietitian, but enlighten us a little bit on functional nutrition.
Yeah, so I love what I do because, as you mentioned, we're looking at the interconnectedness of the body systems. And so someone comes to me and they're like, oh, I have brain fog. The first thing that I think of is, what's going on with your gut? Mm-hmm. Someone says they are depressed. Well, 90% of our serotonin is actually produced in our gut. And then I have other people, right, there who come in, they're like, I'm getting sick 5 times over the course of 2 months. Could that be related to my gut? I'm like, yes. And so
I love that, because a lot of times too, and I like, even it's mind-boggling, because like gut brain and brain gut axis, like, it's real, you know. So it's all gut.
Yeah, it's real. It's so strong. And I mean, from my own personal story, like, the brain fog was what killed me the most. I was like, I feel like I don't have a brain. What's going on? And as soon as my gut started to actually heal and I gave it the time, the space, the proper nutrition, then I was able to really start healing. And another thing, like, I love running tests on everything. One of the tests that I run is actually a neurotransmitters test. And so we're looking at all the neurotransmitters in our brain. And I'm not telling you, go take this medication, go take this supplement. I'm actually looking at what foods do we need to strip out of your diet and what foods do we need to put into your diet. Because it's sometimes just simple swaps. So you think of the thyroid, and if you're having, if you have low T3 to T4 conversion, it could just be a zinc or selenium, like, nutrient deficiency. And so I look at those levels and I say, okay, we're not going to give you a selenium supplement. Just eat 2 Brazil nuts every single day, and that's enough. And so from a functional point of view, like, I don't believe in guessing. I believe in doing the tests and being able to really identify what's going on and then be able to, like, draw correlations. Oh, this system is impacting this system because of this. Oh, what are we seeing? What is the underlying root cause of that hypothyroidism that you're experiencing, or those gut issues? And then from there, we're looking at it holistically. We're looking at it, what lifestyle changes do you need to make? How do we manage your stress levels? How are we addressing your sleep? How are we addressing your AM, your PM routine? Because that factors into your sleep. What is the quality of your relationships in your life? What are things that we need to strip out of your life or put into your life? All of those things. And then it's, okay, what does your nutrition look like? Oh, well, you have a histamine overload. Okay, we need to put you on a low histamine protocol. That's going to decrease your anxiety. Things like that. And then it's looking at, okay, well, we can't just attack every single system all at once. So how are we systematically going to move through the body? And so doing a flush and then addressing the gut, whatever the order is for that particular person. And that's the beauty of functional medicine and functional nutrition. And I think another piece that I love to touch on is just, there could be one cause in many conditions, or there could be many conditions in one cause. And so really, like, you think someone who is experiencing depression, right? They may have an omega-3 deficiency. They may have a vitamin D deficiency. They may have had antibiotic abuse, right? Too much antibiotics.
It's so common, and people don't understand. So I get, and you probably get it too, it's people come to me at the hospital side too, right? Not on my functional medicine, like, concierge, because people are aware. But, like, simple antibiotics, like, people come to me, they have viral infections, and we've gotten so routine that people just want a steroid shot and they want antibiotics. And it's like, you're destroying your microbiome. And so I'm sure, I mean, that's the thing, like, what are the antibiotics, that the things that are highlighted in functional nutrition, functional medicine, it's completely different from nutritionists and registered dietitian, because like highlighted, they don't use actual testing. They don't go through, like, the nutrition protocols, right? Like, they probably wouldn't even consider, like, histamine foods, or, you know, just that protocol at all. So I think that's a big difference that definitely, like, we're highlighting here. And just off of your observation too. So when clients come to me and they have a gut issue, it's really interesting, a lot of it, and I would love to see in your practice too. Let me know what, you know, the common things, but triggers, when we look at triggers and we eliminate, it's surprising, like, and going back to, like, the type of food that's in the United States, I find so many people have an intolerance to wheat, not necessarily gluten, but just, like, wheat. It's amazing. And so when they remove it, it's amazing. It's like, you don't need to go through anything complicated, but just simply identifying, getting down to root cause, and considering nutrition specifically. What is it that's triggering? What's something that you see mostly, like? Obviously, but that's such an interesting point, and I totally agree. On some of my clients, I'll run a food sensitivity panel to look at what is the immune response, and it also includes additives. And so glyphosate is one of those additives. And glyphosate, they spray all over wheat. So oftentimes the person
may not be actually gluten intolerant, or they may not be allergic to wheat, but what they're allergic to, their body's rejecting the glyphosate because it's a chemical. It's not good for our body. And so oftentimes I actually see that. I'll see, okay, they're fine with all of those wheats, those different threads of gluten, but really what the problem is it's the glyphosate that they're spraying on it. It is wild. Yeah.
That's amazing. One other thing that I wanted to add in there too, I know certain brands, we totally could just geek out on this one too, but sometimes, people want to compare what's your favorite brand of, we could just food or just products. So let's stick with food, right? So we could talk about what's your favorite place to shop for clean products. There's a lot out there. And ingredients, we gotta really, you look at the ingredient list from way like years ago, and then you look at today, it's almost confusing. You can't tell, but there's so many additives, just not even glyphosate, that's just one, but there's so many emulsifiers, there's just preservatives to extend the shelf life. It's not food anymore. But
I love to use, have you ever heard of the app called Yuka?
Oh, yes, I've heard of it. You like that app? Okay.
Yeah, so I love to use that app because what you do is you scan it and it gives you a grade, and then it tells you, okay, what's in it that's really bad, what's in it that's could be bad, what's in it that's great. And so I wouldn't say that I have like a specific website that I shop at, even though I know there are a few like great ones out there, but I'm the one that's always scanning, okay, what is this grade? It was wild, and it just goes to show how much work we have to do here in America. I was in Switzerland a few years ago, and my sister and I had walked into the grocery store, and we were just grabbing some fresh fruit, and we started looking around, and I'm like, sis, look at these labels. They have a grade on every single item that has a label that is wrapped. If it's not a whole food, it has a grade, and it was graded A through F. Yeah. So I think like, okay, if we were to do this in America, everything would probably, not everything, but majority of the things on, at least in the inner bit of our aisles, it would be graded like at least a C.
Definitely.
Yeah, and like I love hot sauce. I love spicy food. And when I found out that most hot sauces have this additive called xanthan gum in them, I was like, are you kidding me? Because it's such a great way to spice up food, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, like every like major hot sauce has this additive in it, and it destroys your gut. And so that's why if you're not educated on what's good, what's bad, you don't want to go do all the research, I highly recommend that app. It's Yuka. I have no affiliation with it. I just love to use it. And you just like
suggestion. Okay, how do you spell Yuka again?
Yuka.
Okay.
It has like, I think, a little carrot on it. That's like the little sign, but it's been so helpful. It's good for foods, and
I love that. I remember actually when we met to grab lunch, you introduced me to that app. So that's amazing. If we can't all go live in Europe, at least we can have tools.
Right.
At least gives us a grade, so we know what we're almost consuming.
One other thing that I incorporate with all of my clients is teaching them and educating them on seed oils, right? Because we used to have a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids. And during the Industrial Revolution, right, they started coming out with all these different kinds of seed and vegetable oils. And really what that does is create a crazy amount of inflammation in our body. Today, the average omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid like ratio is 10 to 20 to 1. So it's 10 to 20x what it was, which is insane. If you don't know, if you're not familiar, seed oils are full of omega-6 fatty acids, which are so destructive to our body. It causes so much inflammation. And so there's been clients that I literally just educated on, hey, when you're out at a restaurant, ask them, say, hey, I have an allergic reaction when I have these kinds of oils. Could you please use one of these substitutes? And then you just show them the list, because I made like a little cheat sheet card for all my clients. And so many people are like, wow, that was the biggest game changer. I think that's been the biggest thing that's helped with decreasing inflammation.
Amazing how many hidden things there are in our food, and things that you cook with, right? So I'm a big fan of diversity, but of course, avocado, olive oil, those are good ones. Same thing as supplements. I mean, there's so many out there. It's not always regulated, but even they have preservatives. Isn't that crazy? Like artificial, like coating. Why does sugar need to be in supplements, right?
Yeah, it's actually really funny because I'm really passionate about omega-3, like high quality EPA DHA fish oils. And when I started having conversations with people, they're like, oh, I take this generic brand or this generic brand. So I'm a nerd. I put all of those brands into a spreadsheet because they're like, it's so cheap compared to the one that I always recommend. And they're like, it's so cheap. And so I broke down how much of the fish oil was actually EPA and DHA. And I'm like, you're paying twice the amount and getting nothing. Like you're literally getting no EPA and DHA in here. And so that's just something, it's like, how do you educate yourself? Half of the fish oils on the market are just fish oils. They're not omega-3 fatty acid, EPA and DHA, which that's what we need for our cognitive function. That's what we need for inflammation. That's what we need for cardiovascular health. So yes, there is good supplements, there's bad supplements, and really, like, you're gonna invest into those supplements, but they're gonna take you 10x what all those generic brands that you can just pull off the shelf at any grocery store.
And absolutely, including Whole Foods. I want to also highlight even Whole Foods, places like that. You really have to be careful too with reading the ingredients. Yeah, so it's definitely better to pay a little bit more because you're actually going to absorb it. Yes, it's amazing how much is out there, and it confuses people, right?
Yeah, that's something that I hear so often when people like get on calls with me. I'm like, so what's going on? They're like, I want to be able to heal and be healthy. I just don't know what to do. I don't know what to eat. I don't know what to take. And so it's that lack of education that really prevents some people from being able to take that next step towards their most vibrant health.
And it's all possible. We just have to provide the information and work with each individual person.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, any final last thoughts that you can share with us? What's next? What are you working on? Or just anything you can think of?
Yeah, well, something that I'm super excited about that's been like absolutely amazing the first few weeks of the year. I really just came out of such a healing phase, and to me, my process is uncover. We're gonna look at what is actually going on. What are those comprehensive tests that we need to run for you? Then it's uproot. What do we need to do in order to get your body into healing? And then it's unleash. And that's what I'm really passionate about. Is I know what it's like to have to heal, but I want you to be able to unleash that optimal living. And so because of my heart and everything that I had just walked through, I said, you know what, I'm gonna launch a scholarship fund. And so the past week and a half, I've been interviewing people for the scholarship fund, which has just been, oh my goodness, so many incredible calls, people with such strong stories that need help, they need healing. And because I want to make functional medicine like more accessible to people. And so I conducted about 15 interviews this past week, and I'll be I'll be announcing my full ride scholarship winner, my partial scholarship winners next week. And
oh my goodness, that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm just so excited for that. And you know, I'm so passionate about what I do because I know what it's like to have your health just ripped from you, but then I know what it's like to feel the energy to be able to step into what living life full out really means.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. They're gonna do so great. Whoever the winner is, I can't wait. We'll stay tuned.
Yeah. I'm really excited to announce the winner. I already know who it is, but I'm going to be announcing it next week. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we'll stay tuned. So I will link in the show notes how to reach Amanda if you're interested, website and Instagram and everything. So yeah. Thank you so much for taking time to be here. I'm so glad. This was a great conversation, and thank you for just sharing all your wisdom and being so open. I hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you. You too, Dr. Remina.